Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Thereafter, having divided the remaining food with his relatives, Rantidev was just about to eat his own share when a Sudra guest arrived. Seeing the Sudra in relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, King Rantidev gave him also a share of the food. Purport. Because King Rantidev saw everyone as part of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he never distinguished between the Brahmanas and the Sudra, the poor and the rich. Such equal vision is called Samadarshanaha, Panditat Samadarshanaha. One who has actually realized that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is situated in everyone's heart, and that every living being is part of the Lord, does not make any distinctions between the Brahmana and the Sudra, the poor, Daridra, and the rich, Dani. Such a person sees all living beings equally and treats them equally without discrimination. Om Agyan Timidandasya Gina Jana Salakaya Chaksu Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Staptitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadammayam Tadati Swam Padantikam Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gaur Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we're hearing about King Rantidev and his, what we say, amazing transcendental qualities of equal vision, Samadarshana. In the Bhagavad Gita, in the 4th chapter, Krishna says, when you thus learn the truth, you'll know that all living beings are my parts and parcels. They are in me and they are mine. This verse is spoken after Tadvidi Pratipatena Paripasyena Sevaya Upadekshyanti Te Gyanam Gyanina Tattva Darsanaha. That verse explains, how to get that knowledge. And the perfection of that knowledge is equal vision. So here we understand that actually all living beings can never be separated from the Lord. All living beings have an eternal loving relationship with the Lord because all living beings are qualitatively one with the Lord. But of course, as a drop to an ocean is not the ocean, but is also the same quality of the ocean. Similarly, the living entities don't have the same quantity of that spiritual acumen, but they are a drop of that. So therefore, there is, in one sense, there is difference and no difference between the Lord and all living beings. Some people like to focus on the difference. Some people like to focus on the non-difference. The Vaishnavas focus on both. Because that is called Samadarshana, equal vision. To see within the heart of all different types of living entities. As it's mentioned, there are 8,400,000 species of life. So these are coverings, that's all, over the real nature of the living entity's existence, this pure spirit soul. So those coverings are there due to the association of the material energy. One who simply sees the coverings doesn't see at all. They simply only focus on that, and therefore they make distinctions and act accordingly based on their understanding of relationships on the material level. Fathers, mothers, friends, relatives, enemies, friends, rich, poor. The categories of dualities go on unlimitedly in the material energy. But although these characteristics are there, and a Vaishnava may also notice them, he doesn't give much importance to them. It's not that the Vaishnava doesn't notice the distinctions. He just doesn't place a lot of importance on it. He sees that the essence of existence is the spiritual nature of the living being, and therefore, as it says here, he treats one accordingly. How does that? Bhaktivinoda Thakur says one gives equal respect, or gives respect to all living entities. In the fourth canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Narada Muni explains how to relate to different types of living entities. And that relationship is the foundation of understanding how to live in this world free from material suffering. And what is that understanding? Is that those who are in what we say, a superior spiritual position, we hear from them and give them, offer service. Those who are equal, we make friends and share Krishna consciousness together. And those who are in a lesser position, we show compassion and therefore try to raise them up to a higher standard like that. That's within the Vaishnava culture. Outside of that, we also see that there are so many materialists who have various positions in this material world based on their desires and activities. And therefore, seeing them as simply a product of compassion. We see it here. King Rantidev. He's a king, and he has a position, a very powerful and a very great responsible position. But yet he doesn't forget his understanding of his relationship with other living entities. And therefore, in the position of a king, he's like a father. And a father, one of the qualities of the father is very kind to his children, both affectionate and kind, both. So therefore, whatever that father can do to help relieve the suffering of the children, the father considers that a great opportunity or a great responsibility, not only responsibility, but a great joy. So Rantidev is actually feeling happy, although he hasn't eaten for a year. He's been fasting. He has some food set aside for the break fast. And then one after another, first a Brahmana, now a Sudra comes. And he sees that they are in need. So he doesn't consider his own needs, he considers their needs. One who sees oneself and others actually sees. That's also mentioned in the Shastra that a Vaishnava, when he sees others feeling unhappy, he also shares that type of unhappiness. Not that he experiences it, but he feels a sense of concern, a sense of compassion, a sense of wanting to relieve that. And when he sees others who are happy, he shares that happiness and feels happy for their happiness. That's the quality of a Vaishnava. So here it's mentioned, King Rantidev, how compassionate he was. His compassion is also mentioned, I think it's in the previous verse, or in one of these verses, where it mentions that he is similar to the associate of Lord Chaitanya, Vasudev Datta Thakur. Vasudev Datta Thakur told Lord Chaitanya, or requested Lord Chaitanya, please let me take all the sufferings of all living entities, even if I have to go to hell because of that. Let them become liberated, let them get your, kind mercy. Lord Chaitanya, when he heard that, he was overwhelmed with love for Vasudeva, so much so that his mind was so much attracted to Vasudeva that he actually said, Vasudeva, he actually can control me. He can take my body, he can sell it wherever he wants. I am Vasudev's man. Please note that. He said, I am Vasudev's man. Because the Lord simply comes to this material world for that purpose, of course, to enjoy his pastimes, but mostly to uplift the conditioned souls. And when he sees another living entity accepting that same sacrifice, the Lord is pleased and gives that living entity his full mercy. So we can see here, although he's in the position of a king, he's in a position of royalty, respect, opulence, and so much influence, at the same time, he doesn't lose his vision, his spiritual vision. He has such compassion. And the compassion is the heart of bhakti. It's the heart of bhakti. It inspires those who preach or who make sacrifices on the Lord to continue in such a way that it doesn't matter what situation. We see Srila Prabhupada, how much compassion he had for the fallen conditioned souls. He would even say, reflecting on his position before he left India. He would be sitting in his rooms in Radha Damodar. And Prabhupada had completely renounced everything material, and he was absorbed in his bhajan. But he also had a mission. And that mission was to come and reclaim the fallen conditioned souls in the Western countries. So he did. And after many years of doing that, there's one story where he was sitting in one room, and it was quite a nice room, very, what we say, opulent. I believe it was a hotel room. And he was reflecting on his position or his situation in Vrindavan. And he said to a few of the devotees who were sitting there, "Do you remember how I was living in my little rooms in Radha Damodar? Life was so simple in Sri Vrindavan Dham." He said, "I long to go back there." That's what he said. His heart was feeling the happiness of being, in Krishna's personal abode, free from anything else, and simply absorbing. But then he finished the sentence. He said, "For me, that would be sense gratification." Yeah, because that meant, he came to give compassion and kindness and transcendental knowledge to the conditioned souls. To give that up for one's own personal interests, he couldn't conceive that. So this is the quality of a great soul. When Srila Haridas Thakur was being beaten in 22 marketplaces, although the persons were very vicious and tried to kill him, he was just thinking, "My dear Lord, give them your mercy. Make them Krishna consciousness. Show them some kindness." It's hard to understand the heart of a great soul. But they're so absorbed in service to the Lord that they don't make any distinctions between the living entities and simply try to give Krishna to everyone else like them. So Ranti Dev is a pinnacle of that. And Prabhupada goes on to explain that this is pure spiritual vision. This is pure spiritual vision. A devotee may see the distinctions, but he doesn't focus on it. He doesn't make that. He sees that this is a living entity, and therefore if I can somehow or other serve that living entity, that is my service to Krishna. As Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, as Krishna says in one place in the Adi Purana, those who are actually my devotees are the devotees of my devotees, or those who make others their object of devotion by bringing me to them. These are the real devotees. Sometimes we see people and they want to put themselves in the position of saying, "Well, I know Krishna. I have a relationship with Krishna. I chant Krishna's name. I worship Krishna, but I don't want to really be bothered with anything else." But that's not a real Vaishnava. In fact, the Lord doesn't even recognize that. Those who are not interested in helping others, the Lord doesn't give much concern to that living entity. Really. He may give him some mercy in one form or another. Just like he told Durvasa Muni, after Durvasa Muni had offended Ambarish Maharaj. Ambarish Maharaj was on the same level as Prahlad Maharaj. He was also a king. Such compassion, such devotion, such personal sacrifice for living entities. Durvasa had committed an offense, trying to kill Ambarish Maharaj. Somehow he got the darshan of Lord Vishnu by the mercy of Lord Shiva. And the Lord told him, the only reason you're able to talk to me is because of Lord Shiva, that's all. Otherwise, if you didn't get the mercy of Shiva, you wouldn't even come close to this place. Because Shiva is such a dear devotee of me. But at the same time, he told them that actually your austerities, your study of the scriptures, and all your different types of, chanting of mantras, it's made you hard-hearted, that's all. You have no compassion, like that. Why don't you learn from my devotee, Ambarish Maharaj? He is actually compassionate. Although he's a king and you're a sadhu, so-called sadhu, the Lord was really strong with him. He said, actually, I don't really have such regard for such persons. But those who make their life service to others by bringing me to them, they own me. I am in their heart and they are in my heart. And he also quoted that famous verse, I am in the heart of my pure devotees, and my pure devotees are also in my heart. My devotees know no one but me, and I know no one but my devotee. How to become dear to the Lord is to become dear to the devotees of the Lord, or to preach Krishna consciousness, or become an instrument for Krishna's mercy to others. We use a broader sense of the word preaching, in the sense that preaching may have a certain connotation, but the real understanding is to be an instrument for Krishna's mercy to others. And here we see, and Krishna went on, or Lord Vishnu went on to explain to Durvasi, Lakshmi, Brahma, and others, they don't have as much of my mercy as King Ambarish. Although he's a king, he's in the position of royalty, he's surrounded by opulence, he has followers, he's got wealth. But, these are all part of his way to serve me. His heart is pure. So same with Ranti Dev. Ranti Dev is amazing. As you go on reading from the next few verses, you'll see how renounced he was. How renounced he was. He had no concern for his own personal interests. And you might think, well, is that neglecting one's own interests? One who neglects themselves for the benefit of all others is not neglected by Krishna. One who neglects themselves in order to serve others is not neglected by Krishna. What do we mean by neglect? It doesn't mean we don't take care. It means that when a situation comes where there's an opportunity to show compassion, one doesn't consider what I can get out of it or what's in it for me. It's simply an instrument of mercy. And that's what made this Krishna Consciousness Society so successful. One person had such compassion, and it extended outward to so many other living entities. And therefore we have the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, which continues to expand by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. So here, we can take what we say, inspiration from Ranti Dev, that to see means to see the person, like that. To see the soul within the body. I mean, in some cases it's very hard, because the bodily concept of life is quite easy to notice, where the spiritual aspect of existence, which is the reality, is a state of consciousness that comes by way of purification of the heart. But one could surreptitiously, or we might say, impose spiritual philosophy on material consciousness, and therefore one can practice more from the position of what we say Gyan. Vigyan might not be there, transcendental purified knowledge. One can practice from the position of understanding truth through understanding it through the theoretical application, like that. And that's practice. That's practice. And therefore, then by practicing that, one starts to actually come to the stage of realization, like that. So, and Prabhupada ends this, one who sees equally everyone also treats everyone equally. There's also, they go together. Seeing doesn't mean that one stops there. There's an activity that comes by that seeing, how to treat other living entities. And for the conditioned souls, compassion; for the Vaishnavas, friendship; and for the senior devotees, submission, and what we say, to learn, like that. So everyone has a way to see and to benefit from all different types of relationships. I know sometimes it's hard when we find we're in a relationship, but the relationship is taking us down rather than bringing us up. That means we're acting on the material platform. For instance, husband and wife, sometimes there is conflicts on that level. Sometimes the conflicts are exacerbated to the state where, it becomes what we say a cause of break. But then, when one applies through proper guidance, spiritual principles in any relationship, it works. If we deal with material principles or material understandings, sometimes it may work, but that's only temporary. And most of the time it doesn't work. Like that. When we deal on the spiritual platform, that means applying the principles of relationship. And that's very much explained in various aspects of Prabhupada's books. It's called Vaishnava relationships. How to relate to all living entities on every level, like that. There are so many categories of living, and that takes practice. We're talking ideally, but ideal comes by a way of practice. And Ranti Dev, he's seeing. Here's a Sudra. A Brahmin came and a Sudra came. He didn't make any distinction between the Brahmin and the Sudra. Both he saw as living entities. Both were in need. He saw the need and the person, and not so much the category, like that. And this will continue. It'll continue on and on like this. And you'll see how even lower living entities, even though they're in bodies of animals, he still sees the soul and not simply the body, like that. So Ranti Dev is a pinnacle of spiritual knowledge and compassion. Compassion. Compassion is the heart of a Vaishnava. Any questions?